that way is what prepares you
just
for
start
life.
recording, like, for, like, no reason?
It just started recording.
Here, come a little bit closer.
I love to be closer.
There we go. No, okay.
But yeah, dude, I would have never changed if it wasn't for that girl. I would have been, and not that I've completely drastically changed and I'm 10 times better, but I think I have a better, more humble mindset about it than I used to.
There we go.
Beautiful. Well then.
I guess start recording. So
yeah, so we're 34 seconds in, finishing our previous conversation.
Some kind of sign.
Jesus wants us to talk.
He does.
Allah, Jesus, we respect all religions here. No, we don't respect Allah. He's a piece of shit.
Oh boy.
That's where the problems come from, right? Oh, we're gonna start this off good.
Meanwhile, terrorist cells planning to bomb my house. No, I'm just kidding.
They're not smart enough to find your house.
At least I hope not, for my sake.
No, we're good. Hey, we haven't put this out yet. This is literally just on a phone right now, so I think we're okay.
Yeah, it's true.
There's this crazy thing called editing. Weird to start these things. It's funny. There's this podcast that I watch. I watch the Joe Rogan podcast all the time, and he's on like 832 right now podcasts.
Dude.
Yeah, and each one they are at least 2 hours. Not all of them. Some of them are like an hour and a half or whatever, and then they go from like an hour and a half to 3.5 hours. Crazy long, and about 50% of the people when they sit down are like, I don't know how to start this, and he's like, we just start talking. Look, we just started right now, like it's happening, it's going on right now. And they're like, wait, no, I don't get that. Like it's already going. It's like, yes, we've already, and it's just there's that weird uncomfortability because we see this phone and no one's in front of us, and it's just a conversation between me and the other person, but it feels like it's supposed to be professional. It's just funny. It's weird how the podcasts work.
Yeah, man.
But then it just starts to flow.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan podcast. Oh man, he is sometimes a complete asshole about Mormons.
Really?
Yeah, he's one of like, oh, Mormonism a cult. Like it's very much, not that he recognizes that some good people come out of Mormonism. He doesn't have friends who are ex-Mormon and Mormon, but he says like, oh, there's a lot of similarities to cults, which yeah, there are.
I mean, but isn't the cult any like group of people who believe the same thing that are maybe a little zealous about it?
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, he calls it an ideology, that believe in an ideology, which is like not just like a belief pattern, but it's like a way that you exist and a way of life. And then he has problems with like ideologies and not just like religions of ideas, but religions that also control your life. He's like, oh, that's a problem. But, which I see where he's coming from.
Yeah. Because
there is that worry of, there have been lots of religions and groups of people that have been run by men who just want to gain power. And from the outside, any organization, if you're outside of any organization, almost every organization that exists is going to look that way.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It's an interesting thing, like when you talk about like institutions and religions, because like there is that danger of like when you stay within a certain way of thinking too much, you form these blind spots in your judgment. That can be problematic if you don't address them. And I mean, I guess I can see from outside view like why you might think that like, oh well, that's intentional. Like these guys are like he's manipulating these masses to do their bow to their whims and such. But I mean, I don't know. Like I think the real measure of like the goodness of something is like progress, being a better person.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like,
well, that's always my biggest argument to people who are like anti-religion at a church. It's like they do good things. Like they donate money to the poor. Like churches, religions, yeah, there are some shitty ones. Westboro Baptist Church. Any Christian organization hates them. All of us. Any Baptist, Mormons, Catholic, all of us hate the Westboro Baptist Church. So there are those bad ones, but people outside of the religious community, they just see religion as a whole. And there's a reason that we're separated. And there's a reason we have different ideas. And there's a reason. And they, make fun of, like, oh, you all basically believe the same thing. And just like 5 different words, you guys argue with those 5 different words. Which, like, it seems that way if you're not involved in it.
Yeah.
But it's just like anything. If you're super involved in martial arts, An outsider's going to be like, it's just fighting. They all look the same. It's just different ways to hit somebody. It's all the same stuff. But if you actually do a martial art at a high level, you understand how they're all drastically different. And they do teach different things. There's a different feel, and there's different things you can learn from each one.
That's what I've been thinking about a lot lately, actually, is that, like, kind of the idea of the outside-inside view.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not hard to, like, be on the outside and find flaws when you're looking in.
It's not.
And everybody thinks that they're, like, smart and, like
on a higher intellectual plane
than other people because they can look at other people and be like, I see the flaw in your thinking. But I think the real challenge is, can you spot the flaws in your own thinking?
Yes.
Can you recognize your own biases?
It's not hard to see flaws. Like, I used to think I was really smart because I could see flaws in other people's thinking all the time. Then I was like, oh, wait, most people could do this and I'm not special? Oh.
I mean, who?
Damn.
I mean, who can't? You know what I mean?
Stupid people.
Oh, well.
But really, like, not just like, oh, he's a dumb, like, stupid people. Like, people who get pulled over and then for not having a registered car, and then they don't register the car and they get pulled over again, they get 2 tickets and they cry about it. No, you're dumb. You're dumb. It's not, the world's not against you. God's not changing, controlling your life. It's you made 2 mistakes. You didn't learn from the first one, so the second, like, that's just, stupid people don't learn from their mistakes. Don't learn from life experience. And I think you have to be humble to be. That's I think the fault that I find with most people who feel that they are intellectually very intelligent, is they're not humble. I think humility is one of the most important things. It's very hard to gain humility because if you're not humble, you can't see other people's viewpoints because you're so stuck in your own that it blinds you. And that's, for me, one of the best things about like growing up in a religious community is it taught me to be humble, and I'm a very proud person. I have a hard time being humble, but at a young age I saw why it was important, and so it's always been a goal, even though it goes very directly against my nature. I mean, everyone has a nature to be prideful, but I'm a big person, and it makes it harder. Like, I don't need to have like big man syndrome, but like when you're bigger, you're taller, you see things that like you see above everyone, you feel above everyone, you feel better than everyone. Like, you really do, because when I'm walking around, I don't see peers, I see people below me. When I'm walking around, I don't see people's faces, I see the tops of their head. And it does something to your brain. It does something to the way you think. You feel bigger, better, stronger, faster than everyone else because you are bigger, better, like in some ways, bigger, better, faster, stronger than everyone else because you can visually see that. And every single, the way you walk, the way you talk, you see it throughout life. And so I feel like because of that in part, I had that extra kind of, breakthrough that I had to have to becoming more humble. And I think that's a lifelong goal, to be humble. But the smartest, most intelligent people, and the people who could be the proudest and have more reasons to be proud are the most humble. And there's something to that.
I'm reading a book about forecasting right now, actually. Uh-huh. And it's interesting, like, you can be really smart, but like people who are, I guess, there are a lot of methodologies to apply to your thinking to be a good forecaster, but like overall, like, humility sums up a lot of them. And those people are 3 times as accurate sometimes than someone who's like really smart. There's something to be said about being able to look at your life and recognize your biases. There's no such thing as like making completely objective judgments.
No,
like, that's not going to happen.
Neutrality is not a thing.
Yeah,
everyone's biased.
But to recognize how your own interests and your own biases can skew your judgment is incredibly important when you're making decisions. And I think the true mark of greatness in a person isn't to be able to look at other people and be critical, but to look at yourself and be like, like, I have this bias here that's probably skewing the way I'm looking at this situation, and like when I try to like, I try to be a pretty friendly guy and like get along with people.
And you're great at it.
But I still get in disputations from time to time.
Disputations. Okay.
And one of the things that I try to do that can either bring great benefits to an argument or sometimes just doesn't work out at all. But I try to like present my own flaws when I'm in an argument. I'm like, listen, like, this is where I'm coming from, and I understand that I'm biased here.
Yes.
And I could very well be wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to acknowledge that. I'm like there's probably a lot of things I could be doing better here. Like, and I try to show by example. Like, I'm trying to like demand more of myself and kind of invite you to also like let's come clean about like our biases and kind of like recognize that maybe there's something more that we both could be doing here to make things better. And I think in a good relationship, I've resolved a lot of problems that way.
Yeah.
Where people have been like, you know what, like I could probably do a little better too. But what infuriates me is when someone's just like, yeah, you could do better at that.
Yes.
That drives me nuts. And that a lot of times that's like the end for me. I'm like, you know what, like.
You're like, here I am, like, so, but what that is like there's a limit to where we have when we will be humble. And that's really like, which everyone, you can't get taken advantage. And if you're not humble, but if you're dumb about like giving people too many chances and extending yourself out too many times, you can definitely, a fool. You have to, if someone bites your hands 5 times in a row when you try to help them out, you should probably stop sticking your hand out. You're dumb. But then there's also, because we're both Christian, we both believe that it's important to help and to serve, and so there is that you have to forgive all of the time. You have to forgive everyone for everything, no matter what it is. And so I have kind of a hard time reconciling that because I want to give people, as many chances as I possibly can.
Yeah.
But that can put myself at risk.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I should draw that line. I don't know where I should stop worrying about the other person at all and completely worry about my own well-being.
Yeah. And that's hard. Like, even now, like, I may say one way or the other, like, where I stand as my relation to a person, but inside, like, I'm always questioning myself, and and it can be hard to like be like, where is the cutoff? Like, where do I have to like put my foot down and say like, all right, like this is ridiculous. Like, I'm out. Like, and even after I say that, like openly, like outwardly, like in the inside, I'm still like questioning a lot, because I'm like, I want to think back and like I want to consider like the biases and like. Sometimes I wish that, like, you ever seen the movie Equilibrium?
I haven't.
Where there's, like, everyone's required to take this dosage
No,
that,
I
like,
have.
suppresses their emotions. Sometimes I wish that, like, when I need to, like, make a decision on something, I can just be like, and, like, be like, let me think about this rationally for a second. Because, like, I as I look at myself, like, there's a lot of situations you find, and especially when things get heated. Like, sometimes when you try to negotiate with someone who likes to throw out accusations a lot, and you start to, like, where it's like
they throw out accusations, which is okay. If you have an accusation, that's okay. Be sure about it before you throw it out. And there's lots of people who just use it as filler for the argument and as to emotionally hurt you.
Yeah.
Instead of to prove they're right or to they use those emotional arguments instead of using the facts.
Yeah, like a girl I'm friends with on Facebook said it very well. And this is probably she's married, and then it's probably because she understands this principle.
Yeah.
But she says, "Educate me, don't belittle me," and I'm like,
yes,
thank you.
Yes.
Like, and every argument I've ever been in, that's all I ever wanted. Like, I don't argue with people because I want to find fault with them. I argue with people because there's something wrong, and I want to like make peace with the situation.
Yeah.
Like, I get nothing out of like convincing myself that my view that's only an approximation of reality. I get nothing out of like proving that that's right because it isn't. Like,
no, it's your view of reality.
It's like, not to nerd out for a second.
Nerd.
But like I'm working in an application that uses TypeScript right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a superset of JavaScript, but it's made so that you can have applications scale like things that you're working on and not run into a lot of problems that come from a lot of the ambiguity that comes from working in JavaScript. There's a lot of things you can do in JavaScript that are kind of ambiguous. Mm-hmm. That when you're doing something small, it's not a big deal. When you have like a ton of stuff going on, it can start to interfere with each other. So TypeScript is like, it will tell you, like, it will give you an error if there's like something that might interfere with something else. And it's not like people. Like, and in the book I'm reading, it says, all JavaScript is valid TypeScript. However, that being said, that doesn't mean they won't throw errors. And people's views are like that. People have a valid reason for believing what they believe.
They do.
If someone's arguing about something, like, I have to trust that he has good reasons, or she has good reasons for thinking that way. But that doesn't mean that we're without error. And that doesn't mean that, like, we shouldn't oust those errors so that we can, like, figure out how our code, so to speak, can work together in peace.
And if you argue with someone who thinks like that, it never goes anywhere.
Right?
Because you have to be able to be self-critical in that argument. You know, the reason that arguments and debates are so important is because I want you to be able to prove. If I'm wrong, I want to know I'm wrong.
Right?
But I am not going to assume I'm wrong. And that's a problem I run into in arguments and debates with people. Is I push my ideas very passionately, very aggressively, very loudly. Because if I have an idea, I believe it. Now, I recognize that I might be wrong, but I feel like the only way that I'm going to know I'm wrong is if someone can break me down and prove to me that I'm wrong. And if I don't give it my full effort to show why I believe I'm right, you won't be able to convince me. Because if I haven't given my full effort and you've been able to break through that and say, no, this is why what you think is wrong or the way you see that is wrong, I have to give it my all. Because if I don't, I'm not going to trust you because I didn't give it my all. And if I could have probably convinced you, whatever. So I have to. And that runs into problems because sometimes people, and that's something I can work on and being a little less passionate about it. Well, not bridling your passions is very important. Controlling your passions and being able to bring out that argument in a respectful yet clear and not aggressive way, but clear and a confident way.
Yeah,
I think is very important. But that very often is misinterpreted as aggression, as I refuse to see your side of it. I'm going to passionately defend mine, because I don't want to believe yours is right. No, I want to be convinced if I'm wrong. Just compete with me. Prove me I'm wrong. And then I'll believe you.
Yeah, but I wish I could put like a little asterisk on everything I say, because honestly, like...
Asterisk, I believe this because I have lived my life with my own experiences, meeting the people that I have met, living the life. Like, everything about your life affects your view of things, and people forget that. I
should probably.
As you're nodding the entire table, he
go.
passionately agrees with me.
I do.
Lost the train of thought.
That's fine. No. My asterisk, like I said, it would say something effective. My boldest claims are just my latest theories.
I like that.
I could find out something tomorrow that changes my entire view of the world, and I'm open to that because I love those I call them sky breaking moments. When the little lid over your little microcosm shatters. And you're opened up to a whole new realm. I love moments like that where it's just
it's
holy
like stepping
crap.
into a new. It's like turning the lights on in a room that you forgot that you had in your house.
Right.
And it's been closed for a while. And you just found the key and turned the lights on. And you're like, holy shit! All of this stuff I never Right. It's a completely new experience.
I love that. It's. I mean, that's why I spend hours digging through books, trying to break out of my tiny little world.
And that's why getting, and people get offended really easy nowadays. That's why getting offended is so dangerous. And getting offended makes you stupider. Because you're refusing to see other people's ideas simply because they're not your own.
Yeah.
And that's going to make humanity dumb.
Yeah.
We have to compete. We have to, the best statement about offense that I ever heard was only a fool takes offense when no offense is meant.
Right.
And I've probably said this before, but it's so important to me because I have no business getting offended if you're not trying to offend me. If you're just saying something that you honestly believe, why should that make me mad? Even if it's the opposite of what I believe, I haven't had your life experiences. I wasn't raised in the same family as you. I haven't, like we said, I haven't lived the same life. The little asterisk, like you said, everyone should have a little asterisk, and the frustrating thing is, I feel like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, everyone understood that everyone had that asterisk, and now people have just kind of forgotten. Because it's a lot easier to live in your own world and see things the way you see them and never see, it's easier not to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
It's easier not to challenge your own ideas. But like I said in the beginning of this, that'll make you dumb.
Yeah, and the problem with the world we live in is that, any idea you have, you can find evidence to support it in this day and age. There's so much noise out there. We have a huge information network, and I can literally find anything to justify my view.
Oh, yeah.
And studies have proven that when humans interact with a ton of information, they tend to engage with it selectively and find what confirms their biases, as opposed to, considering the other side and being my side of the argument is kind of stupid now that I considered the evidence before me. You know what I mean? And like, I like, but those looking at the other side can be so instructive. Like I love to sit and chat with one of my buddies who's an atheist, and like, we disagree on a lot of things, but like talking to him has helped me like really like whittle away like some things that I thought about religion that I was just like, that's really fluff.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a cultural thing. Like it's really about this, because like when you get down to like the heart of like why people really do what they do, when people, even from the opposing view, when you look at it and you understand it, it's hard to like not be like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, like I see how that person does that.
It really is.
And I wish I want to like create a world. I don't know what I have to do myself to like to promote this kind of change, but like a world where we can disagree, but learn from it. Where we go about, when we disagree, we try to educate each other and update our views accordingly, instead of like having to belittle each other and shun each other and hate each other. And I mean, kill each other.
We're still killing. I mean, humanity is still fairly young, but we still kill each other over disagreements. That's ridiculous.
It is.
Killing each other because we don't agree about something, and yeah, you can be like, well, we don't agree who owns this land or who. It doesn't matter how big it is. It doesn't matter how much land. It doesn't matter how much it's worth. It doesn't matter the money involved. We're taking lives because we don't agree with somebody. It's ridiculous.
It is.
I don't get to do that. Oh, you don't like chocolate milk? I'm gonna stab you in the chest. I'm gonna murder you right now. Chocolate milk is the shit. It's better than everything else. How dare you not like it? Death. What?
Right.
And that's that's an extreme example, but. Is it? Because how much more important is $1 million than a glass of chocolate milk? Reality, it's just bullshit. It's just things. Things don't matter. I wish, it's a shame.
It is.
But also, as I kind of grow in these ideas of being humble and seeing other viewpoints and being not self introspective and all of those things, when I kind of start and I guess it's a lifelong process, but I feel like as you don't see your progression, and then one day you step through that door and you realize how far you've progressed.
Yeah.
I've gone through recently like a step like that where like a lot of thought processes change, and I feel like that's just part of me growing up. I'm 26, you get older, and as you have more life experience, that door opens. You're like, wow, I never saw, my view has completely changed about the world, and you just see a whole new view. And every time I do that, I realize there are more and more smart people than I thought there were before. There are people who think the same way. There are people who are drastically self-introspective, and there's more than we think, because we notice how important it is, and we, at least for me, like I notice how important it is to be self-introspective, and I know how damaging it can be to the world if people aren't that way.
Yeah.
So I have a tendency to see that people aren't that way, instead of seeing that, hey, and so I've met a lot of people, and I've assumed, oh, they're not that way. Oh, they're not. They're not at my, and it really was me saying, oh, they're not at my intellectual level. And then when I got a chance to talk to them, I realized, hey, they were. In that situation, they couldn't present it. And so that gives me a lot of hope for humanity. There's a lot of people who are self-introspective and who are humble and very self-critical, but it's not something that people show very easily. A lot of us put on, and I do the same thing, and I don't know if you do or not, kind of put on this shield of my opinions when we're walking around day to day, because there's so much shit coming out to us. We have to bounce it off because there's so much, like you said, there's just so much noise of information, and so we have to have, and I feel like that's kind of part of the reason why humanity's changed to be so confident in their opinions, because there's so much information. It's overwhelming to be open and to accept all these ideas, because it can completely change your existence. It can completely change how you see the world, and that makes you need to change. And change is hard. Change is difficult. And so if you don't do those things, your life is simpler and easier, but it's not as happy.
Yeah.
And so I do see a lot of people that are that way, and it is giving me more faith in humanity. My generation would like to say, oh, I've lost my faith in humanity. I don't know how many times I've heard that. And I used to agree with it. Now, every time I hear it, I want to slap that motherfucker in the face. You lost your hope in humanity? You're the fucking problem then.
Right.
If you lost hope in humanity, you're the problem. You're why humanity's having a problem. Try to help people. If you lost your faith, why aren't you going out trying to restore it in other people? Why aren't you trying to help other people? No, you're just going to sit and complain about it? Oh, so
right.
you're nothing. You're a non-contributing factor? please remove yourself. I don't mean kill yourself.
And that is an
just
issue,
remove
that is
yourself.
an issue I have with like I think it's important to be able to be like critical, you know,
Yeah.
when it's with the intent of like edifying all people. But like that is a pet peeve of mine when you meet people who aren't really doing a lot with their lives, but like they're very critical of what everyone else is doing. And I'm like, why don't you try putting yourself out there? And why don't you stumble and fail a few times? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, it's and I had a discussion with someone the other day, actually, where we were kind of just talking, and he was like, wait, like, you're not saying I'm too critical, you know? Like, because you are a man who I've seen continually put yourself out on a limb and, like, risk failure. Like, you've been, I've seen you, like, endure some stuff, you know? And so, like, when you give me criticism, like, I appreciate that because I know that you've taken the time to learn and gain some wisdom. But what I have a problem with is people who've never really done anything with their lives. They just kind of like ridden the coattails of other people, and they just talk about how crappy everyone else is. Like we were talking about earlier, like who's that Olympian who brought like a silver and everybody like gave them crap about it.
I don't know.
And I'm like, why'd you go to the Olympics at all?
What are you doing?
Like get into the Olympics in the first place, let alone get a medal. Like like you're in no place to
or like the guy who criticizes like the technique that Tom Brady uses to throw a football. Are you an NFL quarterback?
Right?
No, then shut up.
Like,
please shut your mouth.
Like,
you do not know. You've watched a football, that doesn't make you an expert or a participant. The most frustrating thing. It's like, oh yeah, we won, the Broncos won. Listen, I like the Broncos, but I'm not part of the team. I'll never say we won the Super Bowl because I wasn't on the field playing. You're a dumbass. Do something with your life. If you have to bind yourself to a sport or to something else, and it's not like bad to enjoy sports, but if you like those people, you know, I see tendencies in the people who you know who are like, oh, we won, and it's just you don't have the authority to speak on that. I heard this great story a long time ago when I was in Mexico, and it was, I don't remember if it was the Dalai Lama, it was Gandhi. And you know, maybe it's not a true story, maybe it's not, whatever, but it's going to be there's a lesson to be learned from it.
Yeah.
This mom had a very fat child. So she brought this child to Gandhi and said, hey Gandhi, will you please tell this kid, please tell him to stop eating sugar, like he's going to get fat, he's going to die, please tell him. And he was like, come back in 2 weeks. And so, you know, and for 2 weeks, you know, she was like, he was gone. And what Gandhi did is he stopped eating sugar for those 2 weeks. He stopped consuming, you know, that kind of food. And then when that kid came, he said, stop eating sugar. And it worked. And the reason that he took those 2 weeks is because he knew that he had no business telling this kid, oh, you can't eat sugar. And, you know, maybe it wasn't Gandhi because he probably wasn't eating sugar. But the lesson from the story is the same thing. If you don't have the authority to speak on something, you have no business saying it. So you need to be able to do what you're going to ask other people to do, you know. And he understood, hey, I can't expect this kid to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. So he did it himself first, so he would have the authority to say it to somebody else. And if you don't do it, you know, your statement's going to fall on deaf ears.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have the authority to say something, really don't open your mouth and say it. And you know, you have the authority to talk about your life and the way you perceive life and a lot of things, but an expert can see right through someone who's pretending to be an expert.
Right.
You know, and that's the most, I'm not an expert in cars, but I know a decent amount. And, you know, and like anything, as you learn more about something, you learn, let's say you learn 10%, you realize you don't know like the rest of it. You know, the more you learn in something, the more you realize you don't know about that topic.
Right.
But I can tell, like, you know, so many people, when I say, oh yeah, no, I talk about a car, like, oh, you're a car guy, and they try to talk about it, and I'm like, you don't know anything. You're sounding dumb to me right now. What you're talking about doesn't make sense. And you see, we talk about this on the online car world. You know, we have memes about it and stuff. Oh, look at me. I'm saying we. But then again, see, that's not a team. It's the online car world. And I am part of that, so this is okay. I'm going to allow myself to say this, even though I don't own a car that would allow me in the car world right now, because I had to be smart and adult about it and stop getting tickets and needed to be mature for a while. So I had to get rid of my fun. But you got to, if you're going to talk about something, know what you're talking about, or else you're going to sound so dumb and everyone will see right through you. And a lot of people aren't nice enough, aren't maybe it's not nice, but they're not willing to tell you you're sounding dumb. They're just gonna laugh at you when you walk away.
Right.
And people don't realize that. They think they got away with, oh yeah, no, he totally thought I knew, something about cars. No, dude, I knew, but I just didn't want to argue with you about it. So I just pretend I knew what you were talking about and let you leave because you look stupid.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, you look stupid. And I've done it before. I've definitely bullshitted about shit that I had no business talking about before. I've done it way too many times. I still have a tendency to do it because I like to argue. And downfall of me, but I own it, and I don't know how to get it out of me, so I just kind of have to work around it at this point. But I figure if I'm honest about it, it's like 10% better, right? Maybe.
I mean, that's the first step to a lot of change. Is just be honest about it. I think more and more often I'm convinced. And again, this is a theory of mine. I could learn something tomorrow that changes all of this, but I really feel like before we demand more of the people around us, and of society or our relationships or whatever, like we have to demand more of ourselves.
Yeah.
Like you gotta be able to step back and be like, what can I do to make this better? Like how can I create an environment that's like better for facilitating the kind of interaction that I desire. You know what I mean?
It's kind of the same, like not like don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Yeah.
Kind of the same principle.
Yeah. It's like I don't. We all have that person in our lives.
Which person is this?
Or maybe they're not in our lives anymore because we can't put up with them anymore. But
happens.
That person who is incredibly bitchy.
So a woman.
Well, you can be a dude.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, it definitely can be a dude.
Yeah,
it definitely
can be a woman. But they're constantly demanding more kindness from everyone when they themselves rip into people all the time. And I'm like...
and usually their excuse is, I'm going through a really hard time.
And I'm like, you've been going through a hard time for 3 years.
Exactly. No, it's okay if you're going through a hard time. Anyone, you let it go through a hard time. That excuse works once, maybe twice.
Right?
Not for 6 months.
Like some people are like, well, I'm really sensitive, and so I need everyone really kind to me. But then, like, as soon as like someone else screws up, they're like, Rah! And you're like, and of course everyone else is also like, and you look at each other and you're just like,
is this really going on right now? What?
Yeah. Right? And I'm like, if you want people to be kinder to you, if you want people more understanding, more compassionate, show it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's hard for you. Admit to that.
If you want someone to do something for you, do it for them first.
Right?
I feel like that's, treat others how you want to be treated. Like, that's the golden rule for a reason. We all learned this. Why the fuck is it taking me till 26 to put it into place in my life? Huh?
Right? I
was taught this. Why didn't I figure it out? I mean, I could blame it on my parents, but in the end, everyone likes to blame shit on their parents. I feel, And yes, our parents do control a lot of how we're raised and how, there is so much that your parents have to do with who you are. You're not you are the product of where you lived. I mean, and you're born a certain way, with certain tendencies, but you are what your environment, is. And if you think that you're strong enough to not let your environment soak into you, you're dumb. I can say that because I did that for a long time, totally thought I was strong enough to resist my environment. And then I became worse than anyone else in that environment. It's like, I can go and out drinking with my buddies, but I won't drink. I'll be the D&D every... No, that's not going to work. If you're around them drinking all the time, you're going to get curious. You're going to... What? That's how humans are. So that's just, kind of a pet peeve of mine because that was something that I went... I thought I was strong enough to resist any evil or bad things or any influence because I was strong and confident, whatever. And that's pride and... foolishness. Question.
Yeah.
What superhero best represents this kind of train of thought that we're talking about? Right?
That's a rough one. I mean, there are definitely examples of like when superheroes have acknowledged this. Like, for example, not to spoil it, but it came out like 5 years ago. So if you haven't read it yet, like... But I
don't even know what I was gonna say, but I'm just
in the Batman story, Court of Owls.
Yes,
everyone is like, Batman, like all the evidence points to the Court of Owls being something that exists, And he's like, no, it doesn't. Like,
doesn't exist. I would know about it. It's not real.
He's like, we have not found sufficient as evidence to prove this, and until we do, I refuse to believe it. Like, there's still it's still probability, right? Like,
Yes.
there's still this much chance that this is just like somebody using this he calls a ghost story to help like spread fear to these crimes they're committing. And I mean, of course, Cordovel's actually existed. But one of the things that I loved is that like Batman acknowledged, because Dick Grayson like calls him out on it. And he's just like, dude, like, are you blind? And Batman's like, listen, like, and he talks about how like he thought when he was a kid the Cordovels was linked to his parents' death. And he's like, you don't understand, like, if I like, I have to be careful because I had emotionally, if I allow myself to believe this, like, it can skew my judgment. Like it can cause me to like lose sight of the real evidence of this and that's going on in the situation, you know. And so like eventually like the Court of Owls definitely presents itself, and he's like and he deals with it, but he refuses to like give it enough sway over him and his emotions to like cause him to overlook key evidence and the details that eventually allowed him to defeat them.
Yeah.
You know.
So he understood his weakness very clearly.
Yeah, and that is Batman's recurring weakness. Like, if you watched Justice League Doom, or if you read the comic book version, which is Tower of Babel, you know, like in the mess of his parents' graves, he like loses his shiz, and then Justice League is all like, hey, like we're all getting screwed, Batman, where are you? And he's like, I found my parents, you know. Parents. And it's like, and you know, like he recognizes that traumatic emotional moment, like how that can like how it's impacted his life, and how like if something's too close to that, how that can skew his judgment. And as a detective, he recognizes that he can't afford, to let that happen. And so like he's a great example of that. But he's also like at times has also been over pragmatic about something, where he just like too analytical and too rational, or he overlooks like maybe some emotional factors, that.
So that brings up something I was going to say earlier, and I forgot. You said, I wish that I could like turn the switch and kind of just think of something rationally and not use my emotions. But you don't want to do that either.
That's true.
Because there's a reason that like our thoughts are affected like by our emotions. And I'm not like a chemical scientist, or anything. This is all armchair psychology or whatever. Armchair is like hold my arms up. I'm sitting on a steel chair. And forgetting where I'm talking. But you need to have both, I think, to make a good life decision, because you need to be honest about how things are going to affect you emotionally. Because if you don't include the emotional side of the thought process, kind of like Batman, it can control, it can control everything about your life. And so you've got to make your decisions based on what's the smartest, but how is that, what's the smartest, most pragmatic thing for me to do, but also how is that decision going to affect me emotionally? Because if you're not stable emotionally, you won't have success.
Right.
And lots of people, that's why there's so much drug addiction. That's why there's so much alcohol. That most of that, and I've worked in treatment centers, and I know lots of alcoholics and addicts, and I consider myself addict to some things. And a big reason why is I was trying to control my emotions so I could control my life. I was trying to use those drugs and those, alcohol or whatever it is, sex, anything to control those emotions, to stabilize my emotions so I can have a happy life. And that's kind of, I think, a lot of what like addicts are looking for is that stability of emotion. And so, and the drugs itself make it very, very difficult. The reason I had that thought process is, I used to smoke weed a lot. Not for, a lot of my life, but there was like a section of my life where I did it. And it made me very self-critical, very introspective. You smoke it by yourself, and there's, we call, you get paranoid. It's not really paranoid. You're just really like seeing things from a different, point of view a little bit. But it made me see it in a very matter-of-fact way. and it took my emotions out of the situation, and it made me see it very literal. And so I made great decisions but I also made decisions that harmed me emotionally and did not make me happy. And then to control that, I was like, well, I need weed to make me happy. And then I'd go and I'd smoke, and then I'd have these thought processes, and I'd go down into like very, very, non-emotional thinking, very like I need to, be pragmatic about things. And so it kind of just became that cycle of making decisions that would help my life, and but they wouldn't support me emotionally. And so you got to find, and that you have to. That balance is very, very important in all of your decisions. Your emotions are a big part. And I have a very emotional family. I feel like I have very passionate, very intense emotions, and maybe that's just how I see it because that's my life. But my life goal is to be more emotionally stable than my father, which is a terrible life goal. It's I should be emotionally stable to myself. Like I was comparing to my dad.
Yeah.
But I always noticed as a kid that my dad was not emotionally stable, and that made him make stupid decisions. It made him do stupid things. It made all of his mistakes really stemmed from that, making drastic emotional decisions. And so I've tried to find, I tried to control my emotions and make it a non-factor in my life. And I've gotten to a point where I recognize that's impossible. Your emotions are going to happen. It's important that we have them, and you need to make decisions that are going to affect you emotionally positively and pragmatically. It's a positive. You've got to have both, and that's when you really go forward with that. And that decision. Those are for me, the best decisions that I can make.
I like that. I appreciate that because like you said, those emotions. If you were rational about everything, like. You might not necessarily be making decisions that will make you happy.
Exactly.
And
we see that in lots of business, high, very successful people. You see that a lot. They didn't, how many rich people do you meet that are really happier than you think you are? I don't, you see celebrities are a great example of how pragmatic, smart decisions don't, they are very successful. They've put their whole life into making themselves great actors or great personalities so they can make all this money. And they make decisions that, they put their emotions on the line all the time. They take roles that are going to affect them emotionally. We saw Heath Ledger take a Joker role when he was mentally unstable, And not saying that was a bad decision. He was one of the best Jokers of all time, but maybe he wasn't maybe he should have recognized that, hey, emotionally I shouldn't take this role because it could hurt me. And if that could have, I don't know a situation. That's just an example. I don't know the guy, so I shouldn't really use him as an example. But that's just the biggest thing I could think of. But celebrities don't tend to be very happy. They're always having problems. They're always switching partners. And you see documentaries, and celebrities get older and they open up about how it is, and they don't live happy lives. A lot of them commit suicide. A lot of them have problems. And sports players. A lot of people are the same way. A lot of high level people. Very expert level people have put their whole life into doing that, into finding success in this one aspect of their life, and they've put emotions and other thing at risk, and that's not happiness. You've got to have that balance in life.
That makes sense, because, and reading this book, I recognize that, for better or worse, he talks about there are people who have, a strong need for, for cognition.
Mm-hmm.
What
do you mean by cognition?
They just need to analyze and think about things a lot. And I recognize that I have one of those brains that I can't turn it off.
Hey.
I'm always trying to figure something out.
I used to have a nothing box. It went away. I don't have I can't go into a non-think, turn off my brain box. I used to have that. I can't do it anymore. My head's going all the time.
I don't know if I ever had that. And I mean, I don't know. For better or worse, I can't seem to turn my brain off. But I have noticed that, there is kind of if I need to just sometimes just do crazy things, and and things that require so much of me that my brain can settle down.
Which is why you go rock climbing. Which is why people work out. You need to have that.
Yeah.
I have to do that or I go crazy, dude.
Yeah. I literally have days where I'll be inside all day, on the computer, and I start to think myself into oblivion.
Yeah.
And I'm I need to go talk to someone else or go exercise.
I've done that so many times. So many times.
So I'm losing my marbles just sitting here. Like my brain just is just it's just like it's gonna burn itself out.
Yeah,
like,
it spins and goes faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, and and you're thinking of everything.
Yeah.
You're thinking of in that time you're thinking of every mistake you've ever made and how that's affected you
right?
up into this moment. What if I wouldn't have done that 15 years ago? Well, that would have changed this and then this and then this and did that and the decision ruin my... And it just... You go through arguments you've had with people. I do that sometimes. I rethink what I would have said.
Yeah.
Or like there's a different podcast that I watch, The Fighter and the Kid, and they talk about this, how like they'll pre-plan out arguments that they're gonna have with people. So it's like they're going to interview or they're going in to like meet with like their producer or whatever, and they're like building this. They're saying this in their head, and then they're imagining how you respond to have this, and then when they go up to them, they're like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And they're completely nice, and they don't do that at all. Like I do that all the time. I have that weird thought process where I just plan out things and I think of things and it doesn't actually happen in my life. It's a waste of time that my head's going that way, and what I need to go do is go outside and run or, study, like even studying something or even just reading a book. I used to do that all the time. I've started reading a lot more now, but when I was younger I would read all the time and I could lose myself in that book just imagining what's going on, and it was my head, like... It's weird, but like my head feels like hot.
Yeah.
Because I think so much.
Yeah.
And it's always going. It feels like, and it's hard to like. I have trouble sleeping when I have days like that. It affects every aspect of my life because I just cannot turn it off.
Yeah. And I totally understand, and I think that's one of the reasons why I like to talk to people, like even strangers. I'll go and talk to them because I'm like. Sometimes I feel like throwing some outside information in there like slows it down a little bit. I'm like, let me just hear someone's life story. Let me sit down with someone and just like let them tell me their tale and like tell me about what's going on in their lives, what matters to them, and like it can be so refreshing to get outside of your own head. Because seriously, like if I spend too much time in my own brain, like sometimes I have to like when I'm like trying to like focus at work, I have to like throw on a podcast or something.
I do
so
that. Without podcasts, I'd lose my shit.
Right, because these other thoughts just have to come into my head. And one minute I'm staring at code, and the next I'm like thinking about like this conversation I had with a girl. And I'm like, oh, God, I got it. All right, I'm putting on a podcast about comic books, and then...
You have to hear something else.
Yeah.
It's funny, I had this conversation with an elder, not super elderly guy, he's, he just retired, doesn't have a lot to do, he's kind of bored all the time. And he was saying, he was like, my head is just so blank all the time, I have nothing to do, he's like, it's just so... He's like, I wish I had more to think about and do. And I was like, man, I wish I could think less. And he looked at me and he laughed and he was like, I remember when I was like that. And he didn't say like, it wasn't like, I remember when I was like, it was, I remember when it was like that. And I was like, oh, so you mean this happens to everybody? Damn it. Okay. Once again, I'm not special. I'm like but I think, recognize that I think a lot of people go through that. We both obviously go through that. I know tons of guys that go through that. I think that's why, lots of churches and specifically our church pushes getting married very young, because when you constantly have that other person there, you don't run into those problems as much.
I have heard, maybe this is why people say this, but get married before you become a philosopher. This is what my friends have told me, and I'm like, maybe that's where that comes from.
I think, I hadn't heard that before, but that rings true in my head, dude. Get married before you become a philosopher.
Yeah.
And we have friends. Our friend Chris K, he didn't do, what is he, 33, 34, 35 now? And he didn't, he was a philosopher. I think that was one of his biggest problems. Kelly. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's just, I think there's a lot to be had. Our world, our country, America, is going in a direction of getting married a lot later on and stuff. But, and I wouldn't say marriage is like getting married would solve, early would solve everything, because that can be a huge problem. But having someone there who you can depend on all the time, who you can talk about what's going on in your own head, who you can, I think that's really important. And that's why humans come in groups. Not the only reason we come in groups for survival and things, but that's why we need a partner. It's to bounce those ideas off, to have someone always there to kind of, who understands your reality and can kind of break into it sometimes. In a lot of ways, I wish I would have, I'd been in a situation to be married and have a wife a few years ago, because I think I would be a much different person. If I would have been that way. Now I didn't find the right girl at the time, so it would have been dumb for me to do it, and I need to go through this or whatever. But I think there's a lot of truth to there's a lot of sense to finding someone to partner your life with early on.
Yeah. Maybe I should think twice about saying this, but looking back, I don't know if there's a girl that I can think of where I'm just like, I should have. You know what I mean?
You should have what?
Like married her.
Oh no, I can't think of a specific. Well, now there's one.
And I hope that's not offensive to the girls I've dated, because I've dated some wonderful women.
Yeah, so have I.
But like, I'm looking back. We've dated some great and terrible women.
Yes, of course. I think
But I don't know. I can't. Looking back, there's no girl who I'm just like, oh man, I should have. I'm like.
Why is that? Why is it so hard? Because there's lots of people our age who got married who've been married for years and have kids in our culture where we live right now. It's very common where people get married early.
Yeah.
What makes you different? Why didn't you do it?
Why didn't you find that? I don't think I was ready.
What does it mean though? Everyone says that. No offense, it's a simple answer. What does it mean to not be ready?
I've always tried to be like a jovial and like cheerful person, but I think in a lot of ways I was still a little too much of a jackass back then.
Yeah.
You know, like
that's why we get along. I feel like he's Ben's been a great example for my life because he's always been like he's a few years older than me and like in a lot of these emotional ways and the way his head works, he's just a couple years more advanced than I am sometimes, and just off of age and life experience and stuff, and it just. Yeah, I mean that's my big reason. He says I'm a piece of shit. Not a piece of shit. I was kind of a jackass. Like I didn't understand like these things I need to do, and I'm a confident, passionate person, and I think because of that, and because of all the ideas, and I know that I'm a confident, passionate person. I needed that extra time to realize and kind of not define myself because that's so basic, bitch. But just really like you're figuring out like. What you need to do, but there's a lot of people do that with their significant other.
That's true.
And I wonder if you could have done that or if I could have done that. Maybe not.
I don't know. Like I mean, honestly, I felt in a lot of the ways that I was abrasive. It was ignorant. Like okay. I just got hung up on stupid things. Like sometimes like, man, and I think I got this from like high school. Like the lengths I would go to make a good joke. And sometimes, like, you get so caught up. I don't know if you probably can relate to this.
I'll make a fool of myself just to make, I'll do whatever.
You get so caught up in the humor that you don't think about, like, any consequence other than laughter, But sometimes, like, you say things that people are just like, that's kind of effed up, dude. Like,
but people are laughing, but they're like, so, yeah. I realized this, because we were both in the same war in the both church building, and I realized like a lot of the girls that were into us, right, but not the smartest ones. Would you agree with that?
I mean, if I'm gonna be completely honest, I didn't pay a lot of attention.
Okay, but this is the girls like I loved I would say like. I didn't necessarily draw the attention of the best women, but we draw a lot of attention. I drew a lot of attention of girls, but I didn't draw the attention of the best ones because I was willing to make those jokes. I was I wanted to be the loud, jokey, make ridiculous, and like, while that's fun, that's not the person people want. People want to hang out with that guy, but they don't want that all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's tiring. And I think that was one of my big things is I needed to kind of get over that. Like maybe it's like I need to be the center of attention or something, but it just, I kind of like you said, we would go to any length to like get the joke out. And I like that shock factor. I like to say things that people don't like to hear.
Yeah.
It does something for me. And I had to, I need to find a girl that's me, and I need to find a girl who's more akin to that and more like that and can deal with that a little bit better. But I also need to kind of control that a little bit myself because I just make a fool of myself sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely can agree with that. I definitely can see like that I used to be that way, and like how that could probably be unattractive to a girl who's like actually worthwhile. But I mean, I don't know.
Not that all women aren't worthwhile, just not all women are worthwhile to me.
Yes.
Is that mean to say?
It's a good way of saying that.
I mean, maybe it is. To some girls, it might be.
I'll be honest. There's some girls dated home like,
Well, there's some guys that I've met that I'm like, you just don't reproduce, please. That's one problem I have with our world, and this is terrible, but why do stupid people have more sex and more babies than smart people? Like, smart people, if you were really that intelligent, you would want to pass on those genes and help.
A lot of great men throughout the ages have had that same sentiment, where they just kind of been like, they bemoaned the fact that the more intelligent, successful people have less children than that, like the dumb people.
It's such a shame. It's terrible. Fucking's great. Okay? So if you're smart, why don't you want I'm
Well, I
taking
mean,
a pragmatic, smart way, and I'm not going to have the kids. No, we need you to have as many kids as you can handle. Please. And still be successful in your career, because...
I mean, that's the thing, though. Like, when you have, like, engaging pursuits, like, you're not as, like, caught up by, hormones. Like,
true.
like when I'm on a mission, I have stuff to do, like... Yeah, I'll see a hot girl, but I mean, like...
I got something to do.
Yeah, I got things to do,
Yeah.
So...
And that's, I think... I mean, you need to be that way, because that attracts girls.
Yeah.
If you're always that guy that's there all the time, why would they want that? That's too easy.
Yeah.
And that's not the best guy, The guy who's out there getting shit done, doing things, It's not always the closest guy. It's never the closest guy to the girl that gets the girl, It's the guy who's out doing stuff and comes in for a little bit and spends time with her and then leaves,
Yeah.
The guy that gets taken, the girl, the guy, how want to say, like, for example, like in a club or in a bar or whatever, it doesn't matter how much time you spend with a girl. That doesn't guarantee success. It's the type of time you spend with her. It's the memories that you leave with her.
Well, that's what they say. The love language is say quality time, not amount of time.
Exactly. And so a lot of people have this idea that they just need to be around, and as long as they're around them, like they're going to make it work out. But no, it's like, go get your shit, dude. Live your life. Like, I had an uncle that, it worked out for him, but he wanted to go on a mission. He wanted to go and teach about God for 2 years, but he was terrified that his girlfriend would leave him if he went. She would find someone else and get married, and he would never be able to be with her. And that fear took over his life, and he decided to marry her instead of going. And it's always been a regret his entire life. And it's fine now. He's an old guy. He doesn't eat at him now, but he wishes he would have gone and done it. Because he was scared he was going to lose her, and it worked out fine. He didn't lose her. He got her in the end, but he regrets it to a degree, because he didn't want to go out there, and it was fear that he was scared, and so he didn't do it. And I think that's kind of been a lesson. A lesson for me is not, I've let fear control certain aspects of my life, and that while fear is a good thing, and everyone needs to be scared of something, and there's a reason we feel feared, you cannot let it control what you do.
Yeah.
Take it into take it into account. It's important, but it's not, you can't let it run your life. Because then you stay in your room all day and you think too much and you go crazy.
Right. Like, girl, uncertainty and randomness are inevitable parts of life. You can't get rid of those. If those don't exist in your life, you're deceiving yourself, But to do what you have to be able to face them, I think is what's important, Like, you can't let those things, like you said, you can't bubble wrap yourself and like hide in the tub, But it's good to acknowledge them, but like acknowledge them so that you can face them and deal with them. You know what I mean? And so I have a thing, like, if I'm afraid of something, I want to like face it, because I don't want it to hold me back anymore.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And that's very much like how I am now, and I was that way for most of my life. I just lost it for a while.
Yeah.
I think, maybe everyone goes through a time where they lose it, maybe not. Maybe it's, not just me, but I'm sure people, but it's the most beautiful things in life are also terrifying. The most beautiful, the hardest things, and in the moment things are really scary and things are really hard and difficult and very emotional, but when you think about it later, it's going to be a beautiful memory. and I spoke to this elderly woman years ago, and she told me, you know, when you're older and my age, you're gonna miss this time of your life because this is when your emotions are the most pure. You're experiencing more than anything. Your emotions are so extreme, but that's gonna go away, and you're gonna miss time. You're gonna miss when you could feel something that passionately because it's the first time you felt it. You're gonna miss those moments of total fear and you don't understand what's going on because you have already succeeded. You already broke through that, and that fear made you so much stronger. It built you up so much, but in the moment it's terrifying. But when you're outside of that a few years down the road, you miss that because it's not something you can get back again. And it makes me, I try to be grateful for what I'm going through. I try to be grateful for the crazy emotions that sometimes girls put me through. You know, I try really hard and it's difficult. You know, I fell in love with a girl. And for the first time, and I was 26 when I did it, never fell in love with any bitches because fuck bitches. I wanted my bros, as gay as that sounds, whatever, dick in the butt, it's okay.
Love is love.
Love is love. But I got distracted by dicks and love is love.
No, I mean, like, you know, as much as like when you're in a crazy relationship, you bemoan the highs and lows.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago where I was just like, dude, the roller coaster, man. Like,
oh yeah, right.
Like let me off. Like
I'm done with this roller coaster.
Like I will unstrap myself and fling myself off of it if I have to.
I'm gonna stand up and smack my neck on that bar. Like right? I'm done. Yeah.
You know, but like those things, like right now, like I have like a really clear vision of like stuff I want to get involved in and start doing, and I think a lot of it came from like being on that roller coaster and being like, you know, now that I'm like, you know, you know, I'm really thinking about my life, and I'm like, you know what, like, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I'm exploring this topic. Like, I'm ready to jump in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think it came at some point when I was just like plunging on that roller coaster into another low, and I'm like, I got some purpose, man, to like deal with this shit.
I gotta have some reason, because if I don't, we're gonna have an issue soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you gotta, life is a roller coaster, but roller coasters are fucking fun.
Yeah.
If you have the right attitude about it, they're a blast.
Yeah.
If you don't have the right attitude about it, they're terrifying.
Yeah.
Except for when they're, you know, a little too short. And there's people who've gotten their heads knocked off on roller coasters.
Really?
And there's definitely been times on roller coasters where I wanted to do this because I thought I was gonna smack my head. Absolutely terrifying. Going down Space Mountain, and I'm like, oh shit, that could have hit me. Probably not. Felt like it though. Terrifying.
Hashtag tall people problems.
Right? Yeah. And then, oh man, maybe it was on a podcast I heard, but they were looking up like how many people die from roller coasters a year. I don't remember how many it was, but like 6 or something. Like I don't remember the number. I shouldn't guess, but like there's an amount of people that die on roller coasters every year. And that in itself is terrifying because I love roller coasters.
I've never been on one.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, dude.
There's actually a girl I was talking to the other day who was like, I need to take you on a roller coaster ride. And I haven't talked to her in a while. I think she wants me to call her, but I haven't.
Do you want to call her?
We're on a date. She's really cool. But anyway,
she's really cool, but you notice how you say that, right? She's really cool. Oh, okay, so you're not done. Got it.
But I'm shallow.
She's not. It's okay. That's shallow.
No, she's an attractive girl. Just not like my type.
I'm so curious now.
I
just want to see a picture of her.
But no, well, later.
I know. I understand. I'm just saying.
I'll pull her up for you. You know.
No. I got it.
You know. I guess the point is, God hoes. I don't know. That came to me all of a sudden. It's like
it's true.
Was it the 90s?
We just returned to 1990. What? 6, 4, 5? Right? I don't know. A number. Pick it. All the 90s were the same. All the music was the same, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Michael Jackson, we miss you. You kid diddling son of a bitch.
I was gonna say I know the kids do, but
oh man, so many Michael Jackson jokes, and they only get better after he died.
Right?
Oh. I went through a time when I got into conspiracy theories.
Really?
Yeah, they're so interesting, dude. People are fucking crazy. Like, and you know what's funny about conspiracy theories? Like, oh, okay, even better. You know what's funny about people who believe in Bigfoot and UFOs? All of them are unfuckable white dudes. No shit.
Really?
Yeah, and I learned. I learned this from the Joe Rogan podcast. But like he did. Joe Rogan did Fear Factor, but they did this other show. He was the host for Fear Factor, but they did this other show where it was just like going around studying like UFOs and seeing if there's any truth in it. Bigfoot, and he said that he was like, I just noticed with all of these groups, they're full of unfuckable white guys. It's just a whole bunch of dudes who spent way too much time thinking about bullshit, couldn't get laid. And so they're just head spun the rest of their lives, and and that's the problem with most conspiracy theorists is a lot of it's all bullshit. There's a lot of truth to it, There are some conspiracy theories that have been proven true, but the kind of people that, really go after conspiracy theories are just it's a select group of people. And I find it entertaining. And I feel bad for them.
It's a hard balance to find in your life. You don't want to be one of those guys who thinks yourself into oblivion. You start conspiracy theories chasing. But you also don't want to be the guy who's you're so busy
Well, if they're right, you don't want to be the last guy to admit they were right.
But I'll say you mentioned these the guys who never get laid.
Yes.
On the other side, you don't want to be.
I believe I said unfuckable white guys.
Yes.
And hey, no, it was only unfuckable white guys. No Latinos, no Asians, no black guys,
really?
No women. Unfuckable white guys. There's nobody crazier than a really horny white dude who's fat, has got a neck fucking beard, thinks it's cool to wear a fedora still. It's not. Stop it. It was not cool. If you're wearing a fedora, you should be clean cut, you should be wearing a suit, and you should have a woman a broad on your arm. If not, don't you fucking put a fedora on your hat. I want to smack it off and cut that fucking beard off, because if you're fat and you have a beard, that's dumb. How did I just say that? If you're fat, you don't have the genetics for a beard? That doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense.
That was dumb.
Sometimes you get lost in humor, man.
I guess, man. Wow, okay.
No, but I was gonna say, but the other side of the equation is dangerous too. These guys who never get laid, but then you guys who get laid too much and never I
never do anything.
I have a buddy who was like this for a while, and we were having lunch one day, and he was like, you know what, these past few years, man, all I cared about is getting laid. This is a dude who has a girl 5 or 6 nights a week.
Yeah.
Different women. He just hitting up his hoes all the time.
You're my Monday, you're my Tuesday, you're my Wednesday,
right?
You're my runner if anyone gets sick. Got it.
And he realized one day, he admitted to me over lunch, he's like, man, I just been living the player life, dude. I don't really know what I want in life and what I want to do with myself.
Dude,
and I'm like
yeah, if you get too this is I think a danger with porn and a lot of sexual things. If you get sex too easy, you stop working for it, because that's what men do everything for. That's why we went to the moon. That's why we have cars. That's everything. That's why men get careers. In the end, it's so girls think we're attractive and we can get laid. And you can say, no, I'm passionate, whatever it is. You're doing it for pussy.
What about well, this is pop culture though. I was gonna say I was gonna reference some stories.
Let's hear it. No, go.
But I'm revenge. And this is another motivation of men that doesn't seem to always involve a vagina. But also that I may be biased because action movies.
Yeah, but how many times is it oh, you murdered my wife, I'm gonna kill you? That's about pussy.
But sometimes it's just over bro, or he just gets effed over.
Yeah, okay. So pussy's not the only motivating factor, but I think for success, for men to be successful, that's our motivating factor. Revenge isn't something you can be successful doing.
It depends on what kind of revenge. Success can be a form of revenge in and of itself. Do you
ever feel successful after getting revenge on someone?
No, well, it's not necessarily getting revenge on someone, but say someone tells you you're shitty at this.
Okay, no, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And you will fail, and you'll never be good.
And so you
at this.
do it just to prove them wrong.
And so you're just okay,
yeah.
I'm gonna do the best there ever was at this.
Fuck you.
And so when you're on top, you're just
You're right. So pussy is not it's not the only motivating factor, but it's the primary.
It's a strong motivator.
And I see. I think maybe we disagree. I think it's the majority of why guys do things. That's what I think. But I do like to, I like to go back to like our ancient brains, and I'm very much into the whole like we are animals.
Yeah.
And we do things for very basic reasons. We're really smart beings with really dumb brains in a lot of ways. I don't know.
And part of it maybe is not to like their baggage around, but like I argue with my dad sometimes when I was a kid. He was just like, if you don't do things this certain way, you will not succeed.
No, it's very true, and I've done that.
And so I think to some extent in my brain I still have like that.
I totally do.
That little kid in my brain who's just like, I'm gonna show you, Dad.
So no, I totally do. But my dad okay. I literally like failed in school, not just because like it was easier to like not work hard, but like I wasn't dumb. I just didn't try in school, and I just did bare minimum to get through. In elementary school, middle school, high school, and college, a different story. But I did that in a lot of ways because I knew it would make my dad mad. I wanted to piss him off because he had these expectations of me. He wanted me to do all these things, and just the way he brought it up, I was just like, "Fuck you! You're telling me what to do, you fucking asshole! Who do you think you are? Like I can do what I want." And that defiance, there's something called ODD, oppositional defiance disorder, which is just I'm defiant to be defiant, and I very much have that. Or I literally wanted to do things like I fucked my life up in a lot of ways just because I wanted to make my dad mad. Or my dad told me I couldn't do something, so I went and became the best at that. My dad told me, I don't want you to do this, or I don't want you to wrestle, I don't want you, whatever it is. And then that's all I want to do just to make him mad. So I think everyone does have that. Just like every girl has that internal need to please, the daddy issues, we call them, like.
Oh my goodness.
But
that's like a whole other podcast.
it is a whole other podcast, but it affects, like how much does it goes back to what I said before, our parents do affect us a lot.
Yeah.
They can they direct a lot of our life and a lot of who we are and how we act. And if we're taught through love, expectations still, but taught through love and taught that, taught in a loving, peaceful, but but still having expectations way, you could see a really difference in people. I worked at a treatment for a while, and I realized back then like how much parents affect like their kids and how many problems stem from that. How many, lots of I'm sorry, but lots of slutty girls. There's a commonality where their dad didn't very often physically touch them. He didn't like to hug them. He didn't like to hold them. He never went in to read them a bedtime story. He was not the one to physically console them. And so they had that innate desire for a man to touch them. And that, that aggresses, you're going through puberty, you want a man to touch you, you want your father to care for you, and so when it's not your dad, you go to someone else.
Yeah.
Because he didn't give that to you. And that is a lot of, and that's, once again, armchair psychology. But there's a lot of truth to it, too.
Yeah. Well, I definitely agree. Like, I feel like I've made peace with a lot of my I guess, daddy issues, for lack of a better term. But I will admit that, like, some of those tendencies have evolved into, like, a mistrust and, like, a need to defy and beat the system.
Yeah.
Like, there are things where people are like, things need to be done a certain way, and I'm just like, no.
Fuck that.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I'm
gonna do it this way.
I'm gonna come up with my own way, and it's gonna be better than your way. Yeah. Like, I still do that a lot, and I have to catch myself, because sometimes, like, as much as I hate to admit this, sometimes there's some good elements to the system that, can be taken and, made good use of. There are experiences I've missed out on where I'm just like, if I would have, like, stopped being a jackass for a few minutes and, like, really focused on this and, like, disciplined myself, I could have benefited a lot, but I was too busy being like, man, I'm better than the system. Like, I'll show them my own form of justice, like.
Vigilante justice. God, we've read a lot of comic books.
Right. and it's hard because, like, in a lot of ways, like, the system is in a lot of ways, it's an agreement of a lot of people to do things a certain way, but because it comes from people, it's flawed.
Yeah.
And when you have that defined attitude, it's really easy to see that. But there's wisdom of crowds, like
there is great stupidity and great wisdom that comes out of crowds.
Yeah,
you get a lot of people together, are going to have a lot of good ideas, but you get a lot of not stupid people, but people like to listen to people. You know, we like to listen to someone who we think's smarter than us.
Oh yeah.
And so if someone's really good at acting like they're smarter than us, or really charismatic and very, that was Hitler.
Yeah.
That's Donald Trump. That's, Obama has those tendencies. Many leaders have those tendencies to be very charismatic, very caring, very loving, but they can lead us down a wrong path. Because it's not that hard to control a group of people. Because while groups of people, come to great ideas, there are also lots of people are good at making excuses for other people. The more people you get around, it's like if we're in a room, let's say we're in a dark room and there's 10 people in the room. Let's say I stab somebody, it wouldn't be hard for me to convince the certain amount of people in those rooms that I didn't do it and someone else did, even if I had the knife in my hand.
Or that you're justified.
Or that I was justified, or whatever. But if there's 3 people in that room, how much harder is that going to be? If there's 1 or 2 people in that room, how much harder is it going to be for me to convince 1 or 2 people? But there's a lot of them. People tend to doubt themselves when they're in groups.
Yeah.
They tend to assume that someone else around them. It's kind of the same reason, when people just literally line up in a random area where they're not waiting for anything, and people will just go into that line, and they're not waiting for anything, because we do like to follow and be led to a degree, and so people can manipulate that. But there is also a lot of wisdom that comes out of it as well, because there's just a whole bunch of people with life experiences. If you do it in a healthy way, it's going to be positive, but it can be taken advantage of.
A movie that's, you may not think of it as a good example of this, but it is, of kind of like, like you mentioned, like you have so many people in a room, and it's questionable what happens and how those people react. If you've ever watched The Thing, not the new crappy version, but like the old, like 1982, I think.
I don't
version?
know if I did.
Or was it 84? I don't remember, but
hey, I wouldn't know.
But like born. In a situation where like there's like, not to spoil the plot, but if you haven't seen it, you've had like 30 years now.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Like, we got like the shape-shifting alien who can look like anyone, and these guys who are like wigging out trying to figure out who like the thing is, like who it could have replicated any of us, like, and just to see how like that group psychology plays into like how they address the situation, and as they're being whittled away one by one, how that begins to change,
And they have that. They put that into lots of TV shows, lots of science TV shows.
Yeah.
There's this creature that takes over one, or there's this show that Supernatural. Lots of people have seen that, and there's this one episode where there's a bug monster thing comes into an ear, and can take control over someone, and they're trying to figure out who it is, and they slowly, because they're arguing and whatever, slowly taking everybody out. So I've seen that.
Yeah.
That must have sparked something, because I've seen it in lots of TV shows.
Yeah, it's an excellent movie.
Yeah.
Those practical effects are amazing.
Not special effects, practical effects.
Practical effects. Cause like,
I'm gonna have to watch it.
Cause the new version, it's CG, but it's like maybe you've seen so much CG. Like something about those practical effects, the way it moves is so unnerving. It's like disgusting and horrifying, but like fascinating. Like you can't take your eyes away. It's just, you do animation too, so that's you're very interested in movement, so I definitely see why you enjoy that. Yeah, but yeah, it's horrific. Like we showed my boss, who's the head of not like my main job boss, who's like programmer, but like I also coach on the side.
Yeah,
and like so like the youth program head, we showed her a few clips from the thing, and she was just like, "Oh my goodness!" Like,
I love it.
And I was like, "Right? Isn't it so unnerving?" Like, she's like, "Oh,
it's just the way it moves." Kind of like, do you ever see The Ring?
I haven't.
Oh, but there's this part where because you kind of the premise. There's this little girl who comes to the TV or whatever. She's walking up this well at one point, and the way it looked like she's rolling up of it, like at point, like her leg will come up and go above her arms and head, and just the way that she moved, it was like she was glitching in and out of TV, but like in real life, and it was just a very unnerving, terrifying movement. And the scary part wasn't seeing her like look up, it was just seeing her grotesque, creepy movements. scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, movement.
There's nothing more terrifying for me than like The Ring in a lot of ways, because a creepy, not eternal, but an immortal, tiny little girl who can fucking fuck me up, suck on my soul. That's terrifying. Because what I'm gonna punt this little girl. I'm gonna punt the little girl. That's what I'm gonna do.
Little girls are terrifying.
Little girls are terrifying.
Like, have you played Fear?
That's the yes, but not all the way through. I've just played parts of it.
Yeah, I mean, I played the demo.
Okay,
I'll admit, I'm a wuss. I started playing it and I didn't finish it.
Don't get scared. I was terrified.
Right? Kind of that same sort of Dead Space. You know, I got like
Dude, when I had to kill those little monster babies.
Yeah, that broke me. that was when I stopped playing.
I'm sorry.
I was like,
I draw a lot. Little children are important to me, and I don't want to see them.
I mean, I guess they were like
creepy, and
they were like some kind of tubes. Maybe they were like just clones for extra parts. Anyway,
it doesn't matter. They look like babies, bro.
Yeah, but
they're scary.
But after that part,
but then it was unnervingly satisfying when I could turn like that shotgun sideways and take out like 6 of them.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, that was a fun. It's a great game. Dead Space is a great game.
Yeah, but after the baby part, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna download a different game.
Yeah, I'm gonna play something else.
Oh man,
scary shit.
Yeah, dude. Well, yeah, it's interesting because like, you talk about movement and having been an animator for a time. Like humans, we understand how things are supposed to move, and in a strange. Like, it's almost like a part of us to, like, understand the way things move naturally.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's interesting how, like, that primal sense of how things are supposed to move and how unnerving it can be when something defies that. Yeah.
That's why aliens, that's where aliens come from. That's where Bigfoot comes from. That's where so many things, they see a shadow or an animal or something move in a creepy way, and that can't be human. That's not natural.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've had experiences where I've been out in the forest and I see a shadow or something move or a figure move, and I'm just like, that's not. There was literally a time when I don't know what I saw, and there's, maybe supernatural stuff is real, maybe it's not. I like to think that, so many people have seen it, maybe there's an idea, but they all are unfuckable white guys, so maybe not. No, but this, skinwalkers.
Oh.
I've always been interested in skinwalkers. I find them very interesting. I've always been into werewolves and those kind of like shape-shifty. It's just cool to me. But I was up in the mountains once and I saw like this black figure, and then I, kind of standing, and I looked over at it and shined my flashlight, and as I shined my flashlight, I can move back into the forest, and I was like, fuck this, I'm leaving. And so terrified that I had a gun with me, and I pulled my gun out, and I was walking around with my flashlight and the gun, like I packed all my shit up. I was literally walking back to my motorcycle like this, like I was that terrified. And I see, and I hear things, and I see like this. I was in this big circle area, and I saw like this thing, and it was standing, and I shine my light over at it, and like my light gets, as my light's getting to it, I see it. Like, it looks like it hunches down, like started to transform, and then I saw it like it was standing, but I could see like long fingers and things, and like I saw it like hunch over and then lurch into the forest and start running as like an animal. Like it looked like I saw its transition from like crouching down, turning it into an animal and running away. And that could, and so I had that experience. And it was the most terrifying, because that figure or that thing or animal or whatever it was, it could have been 2 animals, it could have been, it could be so many other things that would make more sense. And so, I don't know what it was. But something was moving in an unnatural way, and it terrified me. So I walked my ass back to my with the gun ready, got on there, turned, I turned my motorcycle on, still had the gun ready, had the light on, I was shining the light around me, had my flashlight, started my motorcycle, holstered my gun, and took off immediately. And I hauled ass down the canyon the entire way.
Which canyon was it?
American Fork Canyon.
Oh.
But I was coming down.
People have mentioned sightings of stuff like that.
So,
in that canyon, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. Utah, there's this place called Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. It is the most paranormal area in America. They have lots of cattle mutilations, lots of just different skinwalker sightings. They say there's an ancient burial ground, but then again, we use that excuse for lots of things. I've heard that 1,000 times. Ancient Indian burial ground or whatever. But
well, I mean, we're having people have been slaughtered.
Sorry.
These days.
My family did that a long time ago. My bad.
Oh, yeah, Mount Meadows.
Yeah, the Wildens did some shit. We killed some Indians. I made a joke about it once. So there's this is terrible. So I worked at a treatment center, and we were talking about this earlier, taking jokes too far. I do this sometimes, and so this kid would just not stop bothering me. And I was with these other kids, and he wouldn't stop bothering me. And I'd say, hey, I'm with these other kids, like go do something else. And he wanted to hang out with us, but he couldn't be with us because it was kind of a sensitive thing, and I couldn't explain that to him, and so it was frustrating, the whole situation. And so he kept on coming back and coming back and just kind of being annoying. And as a joke, but I was kind of being mean, but it was really like I was trying to make a joke and trying to kind of change the air. He came back and I was like, you might. How did I word this? I was like, you're Native American, right? And he was like, yeah, I'm Native American. And I was like, just so you know, my family has a history of murdering and scalping Native Americans, and if you don't leave, like we're gonna have and it was kind of like a mean, but it was like, my family has a history of killing you guys, so back the fuck up. But it was like, I don't remember how I worded it. I promise it was funny in the moment. Everyone laughed, even the kid including. But then I forgot that there was another staff member right behind him that was Native American.
Oh.
Yeah. He was upset.
I can imagine.
He was very upset, like very offended, and he had, honestly, all rights to do so. Like I said it in a joke, but he was like, "You just made a joke about killing my people, and your family really did it, and they really did die. Like that was yeah, it was bad. It was rude. I had to apologize to him.
Case in point of taking a joke too far.
Exactly, but I did apologize, and I was like, hey, I was just trying to make a joke that was too far. Like I really, I don't want Native Americans to die ever. And he was like, you don't need to explain yourself. Like I get it, just don't, He was mad still. Like, he understood my apology, but he was still upset. All right, rightfully so. But God, it was hilarious when I said it. That was worth it. Worth it. Worth it for the vine. Worth it for the vine. Terrible joke. But there is, one reason that I do respect supernatural things to a degree is they do come, they do tend to come from, Native Americans spend a lot of time in nature. Like, they would have, they did smoke peyote or whatever and probably saw some shit, but not all the time. It's a spiritual thing they did every once in a while. I believe that all myths and all stories and things come from a grain of truth.
Yeah.
It starts somewhere.
Yeah.
Be it Mothman, Bigfoot, be it, any, the ISIS is controlled by America conspiracy theories, and Obama runs ISIS, and just all these different conspiracy theories. There's a grain of truth, I think, in all of them, and people just take it too far.
Yeah,
I think that's
it'll be interesting. I've been reading these books about forecasting, and especially a couple of them have really. One of them in particular is specifically about like Bayes' theorem.
Okay.
Which is basically like it is. The simplest way I can explain it is if you were facing away from a pool table,
okay,
and someone were like to roll a ball into the table, and it was like the white ball, it's the cue ball, right?
Cue ball, yeah.
And you had to guess where it was. Like it could be anywhere on the table, right? But say like they continue to place more balls into the table, and for each ball they would tell you like where it was in relation to the cue ball, and you could like record it on something. Like as more balls are placed on the table, you can begin to infer where the cue ball is, based on where they're telling you the other balls are in relation to it.
Yes.
And you're like, well, if all the balls are like above the cue ball, then it must be closer to like one side of the table, because there aren't any balls that are like any further to like maybe the left or right than the cue ball. Things like that.
Yeah.
And like Bayes' theorem, it represented also mathematically by an equation, but like it's a very good way. It's proven throughout, like since its inception. To be able to address problems where like a lot of uncertainty is involved, by assessing like things as probabilities and updating that probability as you obtain more data.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I wonder if anyone's ever taken like something that rational and applied it to like supernatural things and been like,
I wonder.
Because the problem is like,
someone needs to.
Right.
I just want to see him do it.
Right.
I don't want to put in the work.
Yeah, I don't really go hang out with skinwalkers so I can find out.
Hey, and they're pretty hard to kill, supposedly.
People kill them?
Well, no, like there's like the myth behind, the way the skinwalkers are shamans, witches, wizards. They're magical humans who have kind of become demonic.
I see.
And the only way to kill them is to know their name and speak it. It's
Really?
kind of like the idea behind that is that's like how you kill them, and that could be and there's lots of different skinwalkers have different in each different tribe they're a little different. And they're not talked about in every tribe. They're mostly Navajo or I don't remember which tribe they're from. I don't know, but there's a very specific way you're supposed to kill them. It has to do with their name, and they play by these very interesting rules where they can't come into your house unless they're invited, so they can fake the voices. So they'll fake voices of children crying, or they spend a lot of time around your home, and they learn the voice of a significant other, and they ask you to open the door because you forgot your keys, and they come in and tear your shit up. Like they're very like manipulative, weird. Like that's the lore behind them. Very interesting.
Can you have special powers without being evil? Is my real question. Right?
We've done that before on the podcast. No one gets that because no one's ever watched our podcast. But when they do, no one will understand that.
Oh boy.
Goodness. Yeah, dude, I don't know. I have a weird interest in the supernatural things just because I want to understand the unknown.
Yeah.
And it might all be bullshit. And I think most of it is. But like I said, I think it all comes from a grain of truth.
Yeah.
And I want to know where that grain of truth is.
I would love to see someone apply some like real like Bayes theorem, some other like probability based thinking towards like sorting out a lot of the erroneous thinking surrounding
it'd be
those
great,
things.
dude. Let's do it with aliens. Oh man, Joe Rogan I listened to this podcast where he had this guy that talked about aliens and UFO sightings and things and just things that have been covered up by the government and conspiracy things. Because Joe Rogan gets into conspiracy theories and stuff. I talk about Joe Rogan a lot, but he just talks about a lot of things that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
But does it in such a pragmatic, like logical view. It's very good for me to see. But man, there's a lot of crazy people who think they have proof, and there's a lot of people who have proof. There's just so much shit. And hey, I'm sure there's aliens out there somewhere. This universe is pretty goddamn big.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not that special.
Well, that's not talking about books I'm reading again, but
Why wouldn't we talk about that?
I spend a lot of time reading, apparently, or listening rather, because a lot of them are audiobooks.
Hey, that's
you get free credit every month on Audible. Not that they're paying me to advertise or anything, but
Audible, you can pay us. It's okay. Audible actually does do a lot of podcasts. They do sponsor a lot of podcasts that I've listened to before.
Hey, Audible, we're here. You want to help us out? But no.
I've used Audible. I listen to shit on there. It's fantastic. I need to use it a lot more. I want to cut down on podcasts and do a little bit more books. But sorry, continue.
Yeah, I try to do a little bit of both. I usually do podcasts while I'm working out and when I'm like really thinking, because I think a lot while I'm working out. But like working out seems to help me to think, like kind of focus my thinking a little bit more. And then when I need a distraction, I'll listen to like podcasts like at work.
That's actually a big reason why I like riding motorcycles. Specifically like riding motorcycles without a helmet, which is very, very dumb. But it takes a lot of focus. And you have to be aware of everything. And I also, when I'm not wearing a helmet, I recognize that if I mess up, I could die. And so I have to focus a lot. So it is, while it takes all of my attention, it is so freeing because it takes all of my attention. I don't have to think of other things, and I can just be in the moment. And that's something beautiful at life. I think learning to live in the moment is so important. Sorry, go on to your book.
Einstein's relativity.
Okay. Being a genius over here. All right.
Well, it's a series called The Great Courses, where they'll choose an academic topic and like some like renowned professor will like make you lecture on it and you can like listen to it.
Perfect.
It's like taking a class, but like not having to like do homework and stuff.
Oh, that's exactly what I need.
But like the whole idea of how what we know about science has destroyed the idea that we're special. How many centuries ago people thought the Earth was the center of like everything?
Yeah, right.
And it's ironic because in comic books the Earth is like still kind of the center of everything.
It's like we're prime Earth, we're the most important Earth. All of reality is based off of our Earth, and if our Earth crushes, like every The universe explodes.
Right.
Love that.
And every important event happens to happen here. Like, this affects the whole universe, but it happens to happen on our planet, like, all the time.
Because we're the shit.
But, like, you know, recognizing that, like, relativity, dude, like, we're not that special. Like,
The universe doesn't care.
Yeah.
It doesn't care what happens to us.
Yeah.
Nothing like. Yeah, and I think in life, learning that, you know, in your own ways, you're not that special.
Yeah.
You're not, you know, a lot of people think like you do. A lot of people have had the same ideas you have. The difference isn't, you know, you're not inherently special. You know, which goes a bit, you know, there's some beauty in religion because we teach that everyone is inherently of the same worth. But I don't know if that necessarily means, and I do believe that everyone, you know, themselves is of the same worth, because we're all people. We all, when we're born, we're worth it just as much as anyone else. But our value, I don't know if it. I feel like your value changes based off of like what you are, what you do, and. You're not necessarily, I don't know. I'm not really sure about my thoughts on this. That's why I'm kind of going back and forth. But you're not, I guess what it comes down to is like your value is in what you do and who you are and how you help other people.
Yeah.
You know, your value is, you know, I kind of heard the quote, like, live your life to where, you know, yeah, so, forgetting my thought, the camera, you know, the video cut out, and I thought my train of thought. I lost my train of thought. Everyone is valued, and we all have the same worth. But your value is what you do and how you help and who you help. And I think the thing that I was saying, the thing that I heard recently was, live your life to where there's going to be a lot of people at your funeral. And the way you do that is how you help people, how you take care of people. People remember personally what you do for them. It's not about having money. You know, there's lots of successful people that die and no one shows up at the funeral. You know, I heard the story of this guy who, and I heard this on a podcast or somewhere, but he died, and the only person, you know, he was very successful. He had everyone, when he had a party, everyone came to his party. You know, when he asked people to be there, they were always there. But when he died, only his driver was there because he didn't treat people well, because he didn't take care of people. And I think that, you know, that's where, like, the real value is like how you know, it's great to be smart, it's great to be intelligent, it's great to, and we need people who focus on being smart and intelligent and pushing the world forth. But what really is going to make you happy in the end is how you treated people and how you took care of people and what you did for people. And that's something I try to hold on for myself, because as big of an asshole and a jackass as I am, I also know that anytime I've been able to help, like anytime anyone's needed something, I've tried to be there. And I know you're good at that, and I know, you know,
I'm trying. Not perfect at it.
No, not perfect at it. And I'm sure there's times when you get sick of it and you don't want to be there for people or whatever. You know, that, you know, people have times like that, but that's really the most important thing in life, is being there for the people you care about. That's what is going to make you happy.
Right.
That's why, you know, a lot of, you know, have kids, get married and have kids. Like, it makes you happy. I'm not married and I don't have kids. And I understand that bars me from getting to another level of happiness that I haven't experienced yet. Then until I take that step of getting married and having kids, and there's so much happiness that you can only reach that way. And that's a view that my generation is pushing away. You know, you don't need kids. Abortion's fine. Let's kill babies in the third trimester when they can survive out of the womb, because that's okay. Political insert there. But it just, loving people is what really makes you happy.
Yeah. I definitely believe that.
Love a little more. But it's still funny to be
like you mentioned earlier, if I just worked to be successful all the time, I'd think myself into oblivion.
It's very true.
And I'd be pretty miserable.
It's very true. It's good you learned that, though. It's good I learned that, too. Like, that's something... And it's very comforting talking to other guys and realizing they're learning the same things I am. You know, one, I'm not the only one that didn't know. You know, I'm 25, I'm 26. I feel like I should know everything and be an adult by now. No one's an adult. Adults don't exist. Bigger kids do.
Right.
No one knows what's going on.
I firmly believe that. We're just bigger kids. And I think that honestly helps you to be like more compassionate towards other people when you realize we're all just giant kids.
No one has any idea what's going on.
Right.
I have my faith. I have my beliefs. But even with that, I don't believe I'm wrong. I believe I'm right about what I believe. But I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not foolish enough to think that because I believe it is the truth. Now, I believe that it is. I wouldn't waste my time on religion and church if I didn't. But I also can't sit here and say 100% it is the only truth in the universe, because that's foolish.
Yeah.
I can't be a smart person. I can't be an honest person and honestly believe that. You have to question everything you do. Even your faith, I think.
Yeah.
Because if you can't question your faith, you probably don't have it.
Right.
If you're too scared to question